skins for the belly, the aft and the forward. So I have the aft cut out and it's in position. Back over there is where the forward skin is cut. This is the forward skin, belly skin for the Titan Tornado. It's got a different angle because it wraps up around the nose. And it is pretty close to shape. The rear skin is in place. Have it held down on the sides with clamps. That took a lot of effort, was to cut those out. Initially when I cut it out, it's bowed a little bit so it'll actually sit flat. I learned that I was fighting the sheet being flat and sticking out to the side, and with it sticking out to the side, the angle for the cut wasn't right. So to fix that, I found the bend radius on the frame right here. Drew a line, took it over a table, and put a piece of aluminum stock on there, round stock, about 2 inch, and then just rolled it and got a little bit of a bend built into it, so that when I was back on the back making measurements for cuts, it actually laid down to the side like it was supposed to, and that way I didn't have this huge cutout that I didn't need. So it's a lot tighter. You can see that it's actually nice and tight right there. And then when it goes down here, it actually will be a little bit bigger than I had hoped for, but it works well. So that is the rear skin. It is in place, and the front skin is next. So the front skin is now on. Have it clamped into place, have the board across the center to where the rivets will be, and just using some clamps to hold it down. Been working on laying out the holes and the pattern for the aft belly skin. In this case, there's a couple of tricks that the team down here, Brian and John and Jay, shared with me. So one of those tricks is to use a piece of angle iron and run it across the flat surfaces, and that will make a line on the center of your tube, which is where all the holes need to be drilled. So that made finding center pretty quick and easy, as opposed to trying to drop a line. I initially had started with a ruler and trying to make that happen, and then I remember that they'd share that tip. So a really good trip. Just grab the flat edge, you lay it on here like this. You lay it flat, you push down with a little pressure and just slide it. And when you do that, it makes that line right down the middle in the paint. Then I use the rivet fan. So lay the rivet fan out at 1.5 inches. So these are called the floor tubes, and that's going to be the first ones. I went through and also marked all the tubes that I'm not supposed to drill on with a piece of tape, just to make sure that I didn't do it, and then labeled them all, starting in the back. The left to right is number 1 in the back, the front is number 2, and then running from front to back is number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. And I've marked them because what will happen is once I drill these holes, I'll get a piece of Lexan, and I'll lay an individual piece of Lexan on each one of these and match drill the hole through the clear Lexan. And then I'll lay the skins on here. I'll start in the back and work my way out across the back beam this way, from the inside out, and then I'll work my way up the V on the floor frame, and then I'll work my way on the outside edges up as well. And I may actually do all of that at the same time. So I'll work my way from the center out, and then I'll work up the middle, and then I'll work out, and then up the middle, and then out, and that way it tightens that skin all the way across the floor. I'm going to drill these holes next. I'll do the drill on the side supports, so this one, the longeron, and the back one. Other than that, you don't do any extra holes. That's the only place where you put the rivets to skin. And just like that, through the power of editing, all the holes are drilled on the frame for the rear skin. So the aft belly skin holes have all been drilled at number 40. So I also went ahead and drilled the forward lower hoop. So I marked the center line using this front hoop and this back hoop, and then drug it down and around, and that marked center for me. And so the center line runs down and around. It's just a nice little gray line. I'll try to grab a picture of that. But the center line runs from here down and around. Use the rivet fan, marked the holes in here, drilled them, used the Cleco on top, and then just wrapped it around. And I met this hole down here at the joint, and used a couple clamps to hold that into place. Then I went through and just marked the holes and then drilled. These holes right here were a little bit different because I had to find the right angle, so I was drilling directly, you know, in line with the pipe or the tube. A little bit funky, but it worked out. So I got these holes drilled. I'm gonna step across. So the aft skin is on. I have it laid in place. I had drilled all the holes and made in number 40s, and then made the templates with the Lexan. So starting with the number 1 template here in the back across the support between the main gear. As you can see, there's an overlap there, which is what you want so that you can cut the excess skin off, and that means all those holes are blind. So drilling the first holes to get the templates on proved to be a little bit of a challenge for me. I was going to start on the outside because I thought I could see that hole and work it. It wasn't going to work out. I missed the hole a little bit, and I didn't want to guess too much. But what I ended up doing was I used a trick that we used on the Mustang, which was to use a reverse punch. And so I basically designed a reverse punch to use for these 4 center holes right here on that back one. So this one, and that one, to get the template in place. And what I used was this little beauty. So let me see if I can get that in focus here. So on the bottom, it's just a number 4 bolt that I sanded down so that it would fit into a rivet hole, a number 40 rivet hole. And then I put a nut on there, a lock nut, so that it would be tight and not back out. And then I just cut the bolt head off and then sanded it to a point. So that allowed me to do is it allowed me to put it inside the hole underneath the skin. So the front and rear aft belly skins have both been placed, and then just for fun I threw the instrument panel hood in just to see how it's going to sit. I was thinking about actually working on that. The skins are on, front and aft belly skins. Ended up taking a little bit more time and effort when I went to put the front skin on with the adjustments that I made with the instrument panel. That side was running too tight, and so it was rubbing against the skin and pushing it out a little bit, so it's just a little bit too tight. So spent the last little while making some adjustments. Instrument panel hood did tilt a little bit and slid back so that there's a gap now on the inside of the skin. Project this morning is to rivet all the skins in place of the front and the aft belly skins. So I've already started this morning, put all the Clecos in, made sure everything was tight. Started out with a pattern, so every 4th rivet, just to make sure everything was, or every 4th hole, to make sure everything was flat, and riveted those along the front and the back. And then this next time was every other one, so now they're paired up, and now I'll do the same thing, just move to the back, pull the Clecos out, put the rivets in place, and then go through and rivet them all. And just like that, the skins are riveted in place. On the other side, where the door is at, the skin is right on the tube, and now that it's riveted in place, I'll go through and use a mallet and tap that down and roll that edge over so it's smooth on the tube. This side called for the overlap, and so when I laid that over initially when I did the layout and did it tight on the tube and brought it over and across, there wasn't a 4-inch gap on this one, so was a little concerned with that because when they put the Lex in, you need to have enough to do that. I was also concerned with the seams here and in the back where it comes across the tube. Because it's so narrow, there's not as much flexibility here to allow that Lex end to go in. Just to double check this before I actually riveted this in place was I grabbed a piece of scrap Lexan that was sitting around that's about the same thickness, and I just made sure that I can get that up in underneath the skin. And essentially on my build, this Lexan is going to lay on that tube and run along the tube. So this seam here was a little bit tight. I was worried about it, but ultimately with that bend in the Lexan, it's going to be perfect. So that basically will allow it to sit. It's not going to sit on the tube all the way forward up here. It'll actually be cut to the curve, but that will allow me the flexibility to get that in there, and then I'll run that rivet line right along here, just along the edge, about a 1/2 inch in, all the way around to secure the window. So that step's done. I'm going to work on this edge here now that the rivets are in. Rolling that edge over the tube initially worked out really well. There's a few wrinkles here and there, and I just took a hammer to them and just tapped them a little bit, and notice that is going to flatten those out. And so I'm going to go through and flatten those out and then take some sandpaper and clean up the edges so they look nice and clean, so I have a nice clean transition. The skins, for those that don't know, the back aft skin goes underneath the top, and that's for airflow. As you're flying through the air, the wind comes back across and doesn't catch any lips, it just travels straight back. So skins are in place, riveted all the way around both sides, and pretty happy with the way it looks. No significant wrinkles or creases, and it's nice and firm, which will allow it when it gets cold to tighten up, and then it'll stretch a little bit when it heats up in the winter or in the summertime. So otherwise, happy with it. On to the next project.